In this video, I'm going to show you how to create better looking influences, and that is going to be using newest methods for doing that inside of Maya. So for this one, I'm going to continue working with the shoulder geometry, and I will select this one and the joint. So both the joint and the geometry. This time around, I'm going to go inside of my rigging menu to my skin and bind skin options. In this case, I will reset everything to the defaults, but now changing the joint hierarchy, I'm going to say, well, actually I'm going to leave that one. The binding method is going to be the Geodesic Voxel, and the skinning method is going to be dual quaternion. Then the maximum influences I'm going to have are going to be something between 3 and 4. 4 is a good number to have, and the resolution is usually the larger the better. This one is going to be 512. So maintain maximum influences. I don't want to remove the unused influences. Colorize the skeleton is fine, and everything else is going to be okay. So these are going to be the settings that I'm using. Let me explain a little bit what these guys are. So bind method Geodesic Voxel is going to say this object, break it down into smaller sub-objects, make it out of cubes. So that's what a voxel is basically the 3D equivalent of a pixel. So this voxel, this volume unit, is going to start making smaller cubes inside of this thing, and the resolution is how many cubes I'm going to be adding per area. So this is not like it's only going to be 512 cubes. This is just the resolution, how many voxels I'm going to be having per area. The dual quaternion is going to help me out remove some issues when I have articulation points. And then normalized ways interactive really just means that all of them are, if I'm all of the influences need to be added to one. So if I move a joint, that joint is going to be affecting vertices, but each vertex is going to have up to 4 influences, and the addition of all of those are going to be 100% of the influences. Maya is going to change that value from 0 to 100 to 0 to 1 to keep it a normal. And then these ways, the interactive is just going to say if one joint is going to be affecting more than others, then probably is going to have a higher value that is influencing that particular area. The weight distribution by distance is fine. The other options that I have are just neighbors and whatnot. But the difference between this method and the other one is that the classic method, the closest distance, is not going to take in account any volume whatsoever. It's just going to say my joints are, if they are close to a vertex or to a point, then you should be influencing them, which is totally false. Let me just do this super quick example. See, if my finger was like this, if this mesh was modeled in such a way that it continued this trend down here, this joint doesn't have anything to do with the hand, but this vertex is going to be also close to this point. So when I turn around this area, it is going to be affecting the tip, which is what happened in the very last video. I had a couple of vertices here that were close to this distance or to this articulation point, so I needed to clean them up. So this Geodesic Voxel is going to do a better job. So I'm just going to hit bind my skin with these settings, and oh, actually I have to select them because I deselected them for the example. So I'm going to bind them, and it's going to start working here on the corner, as you can see. So that took a little bit of time, and once it's done, I'm going to have some really noticeable issues, and I'm going to just rotate these for a second to show you what I mean. What's going on here is that the level of influences that I had are really not that effective, and most of it is coming from the fact that this is a shell that is separated into multiple pieces. This is something you don't really want to have. There's ways to go around and modify it, but in theory or ideally what you should have is a single shape that doesn't have any faces intersecting and other things. There are clearly a couple of issues here that are not really just coming from that fact, but it's a matter of cleaning this thing up. So one thing that I'm going to do right now is I will select this object. I'm going to select a couple of vertices, let's say this vertex here, and I'm going to hold Control and then right click. Then I'm going to say to shell. That is going to make the whole selection go for me and say, well, select all of this. The rotation point or the pivot point is going to be J shoulder 1. This is the place that I wanted this thing to be rotated, so or modify or transform. So I'm going to click on my paint scheme, but now this time around what I'm going to do is I will say, instead of painting, I'm going to flood it, but the influence in this case is going to be 1. So what I want is for all of my objects in this shell, I want them to be joined to the shoulder 1. So I'm going to hit flood, and that fixes it. Instead of having to paint, I'm going for the whole object and then painting it. So I'm gonna go do the next couple of vertices. So I'm gonna go UV shell. Actually, sorry, I need to go to my vertex. So I'm gonna select a couple of vertices here. I'm gonna right click and hold Control, and that is going to say to shell. Then I'm going to click on my paint. I'm gonna go to arm, and I'm going to flood that influence. And I need to do that for every single one of these guys. The issue is that I'm still on that sort of mechanism here. If I rotate this thing, that is still going to give me that sea fighting, and there's really no way around it other than creating a single shell that is not intersecting with each other. So that's a quick way of fixing this geometry. Definitely the painting the weights, no matter what technique you do, it's going to be very beneficial out of flooding the influences, no matter if you choose the Geodesic voxel or you choose the closest distance. But definitely there's ways to improve on this this state. I'm going to be stopping the video here, and I will be showing you a better way of working with this flood influence. But if you ever have a model that is separated in multiple pieces and you have a vertex joint that is going to be the rotation point, like in this case here, then it's really simple to just select one of these vertices and selecting the whole shell, going to the paint, and then finding the appropriate finger. I think this is finger 1. If I'm not mistaken, finger A. I am, so it's going to be, let's see, finger C, probably. Finger C. And then I need to flood this influence to 1. Right, so that is going to be it for this video. I will show you a better way of working with painting the influences in the next one.